All right, welcome to our Fire Up Weekly Wednesday webinar, sponsored by Newfields Ag, where we bring innovations in your fields. We encourage you to visit our full-service website, newfieldsag.com, where you will find a complete listing of Newfields Ag products, product descriptions and videos, use and application instructions, contact information for your local dealer, pricing, and much, much more. Thanks to each one of you for registering and joining us today. If you have a question during the presentation, please place your question in the chat box or simply raise your hand and we will get it asked. I'm your host this morning, Bob Kessler with Newfields Ag. Today's focus will be on one of our N-fixing products called Phenom, as well as a stress mitigator product called Frenzy. Joining us to share their expertise this morning is Steve Vistad. Steve is with Dakota Bio, and he will be doing the presentation. Welcome, and thank you, Steve, for joining us this morning. Finally.
Thanks for having me, and apologize for the delay here. For some reason, Microsoft was not wanting to work, but we got it.
Yes, we got it.
Would you like me to start running through it?
You're ready to go.
Okay, and you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. As Bob said, let us know if you got a question. Let's treat this as a conversation. We're all here to learn and help you guys succeed with these products. So my name's Steve Vistad. I'm with Dakota Bio. You can check out our website for further info, and we'd like to ask you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, or just give us a call. We got salespeople across the Midwest that would be glad to help you out. So, of course, now look at here. This is because of the technology. We got to pause again here, Bob. This issue of the PowerPoint was loaded up, ready to go. Now it's the wrong one. Sorry, Bob. Let's try this. This darn thing. Let's try it again. Can you see my screen, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Had it preloaded to the right product, so okay. Okay, so we are gonna discuss Phenom. Phenom is a wonderful product we've had on the market for, I believe, 3 years now. It is a biological product that converts atmospheric nitrogen to NH4 inside the plant. So long story short, what Phenom does is it causes every plant to create nitrogen. So you're causing each plant to become its own little nitrogen factory. You're increasing the supply of nitrogen to your crop. Phenom is a blend of 2 different endophyte bacteria. So one of the bacteria in the product is for nitrogen. The other affects how that plant processes phosphorus. So you're increasing your phosphorus efficiency inside the plant. Phenom can be used on all crops. And we have 2 different Phenom products. So Phenom ST is formulated to go through a seed treater and be applied to the seed. Phenom can go through the planter in furrow or go through a sprayer and be applied foliar. We've increased our concentrations for the 2024 season. So it's a very highly concentrated bacteria product. And it is the only nitrogen fixing product in the industry that has the 2 modes of action that address nitrogen and phosphorus. So as I said, Phenom is an endophyte bacteria. There's 2 of them in there. What that means is endophytes live inside the plant. They do not live in the soil. So it's crucial for us to get them and apply them properly to get them in the plant so they work, so they bring increased nitrogen to your crop. The bacteria enter through these microscopic openings in the plant, and those are called stoma. So if you use Phenom ST on the seed, or if you use Phenom in the furrow touching the seed, as soon as that seed germinates, all the Phenom bacteria are on the outside of that seed. When that seed germinates and that first little root and shoot come out after germination, it is loaded with those microscopic openings, those stoma. And that is how they get inside. So it starts working as soon as you get your first leaf after emergence. If you apply Phenom foliar to the leaf in the plant matter above ground when you're spraying, the stomas open up when that plant breathes, and the bacteria enters through those openings on the leaf and the stalk. So as you can see here in this picture, these we were able to highlight, I don't know how the scientists do it, but they were able to give them this fluorescence to take a picture under a microscope. And when your plant grows, the phenom keeps increasing in population and translocating throughout the new growth. So you just keep increasing the population in your plant, and they live right around the stoma. So when that plant breathes, it's producing nitrogen. This is a view of a root where there's a lot of stoma also, and you can get them living in the root also. So as we said earlier, Phenom converts atmospheric nitrogen. So our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, but it's in the N2 form. Plants can't use N2. Phenom converts N2 to NH4. So the longer it's in your plant, the more days it's in your plant and that plant is breathing, you're fixing nitrogen each day. So the longer it's in your plant, the more nitrogen you can supply to that plant. So timings of application. So we'll talk corn here for a second, but if you're able to treat your seed, you can apply Phenom ST to that seed corn. So when that seed germinates and you get the first leaf out, you're starting to supply the nitrogen on day one. If you apply Phenom in furrow, same thing, but you need to touch the seed if you apply in furrow. If you apply foliar, we like to apply, and this is most common, is with that first post-emerge herbicide pass. So we do a lot of applications a lot of our testing in all the research farms. We're doing that between about V3 and V5 when we're applying the Phenom and putting it right on the plant. And that plant, the stoma's open, the Phenom gets inside, and we want it in that plant as long as possible, because this line here, an arrow, kind of represents your nitrogen demand by the corn crop. So you get into that about V5 and higher, the demand for nitrogen by your crop skyrockets. So we really, to get the best effect and the best response, we want it in before that. We've done many, many tests, and lots of customers and acres get applied all the way out to tassel with a fungicide pass, and that works very well. But if you're wanting to provide higher levels of nitrogen, that means you need more days. So you apply it earlier for the biggest result and the largest amount of nitrogen fixed. Soybeans, very similar concept. You can run it through a seed treater with Phenom ST, put it right on the seed. And so when the first trifoliate comes out, you're fixing nitrogen all the way through the life cycle of that plant until it ripens and dies. As long as you have green leaves and that plant is breathing, you're fixing nitrogen. But most Phenom goes out foliar with that first post-emerge herbicide pass. So we like to kind of bring up the topic of inoculants now when we talk soybeans, because Soybeans are a legume, and inoculants create the nitrogen-fixing nodules on the roots. So the way the legumes work with inoculants, each legume, so whether it's a soybean or a pea or a chickpea, they all require very specific types of bacteria. When it comes to phenom, you don't need that. Each plant doesn't require a different bacteria because these are the endophytes. So with inoculants, you need specific bacteria. It needs to be on the root. The plant gives it its food and energy to create that nodule, but a legume does not allow an inoculant to create a nodule until it becomes deficient in nitrogen. So you have a delay there. It's usually around V2, V3, second or third trifoliate on beans when you start to see the nodules form. Then it takes a week or two before they start to fix nitrogen. And then the nodules will fix nitrogen out until the reproductive phases. That's when they begin to die and stop fixing nitrogen. So you have this shorter window, about third or fourth trifoliate up until about R1, R2, when inoculants fix nitrogen. So with less time, they are fixing less nitrogen. Phenom works as long as that plant has green leaves and that plant is breathing. Now, if you enter, severe drought or heat stress and that plant kind of locks up and is conserving moisture, not opening the stoma, on those days, you're not fixing nitrogen with an endophyte. But you have a lot more days of growth and a lot more days of nitrogen fixation in the season with a phenom versus an inoculant. Now, I am not talking against inoculants. I'm a big believer in inoculants. We sell some of the best inoculants in the industry with our Soy 30 product, but Phenom is a very good alternative to getting that soybean nitrogen because soybeans need very high levels of nitrogen. It takes almost 5 pounds of nitrogen to produce 1 bushel of soybeans. So do the math. If you want to raise your yields 10 bushels per acre, let's say that's your goal, to have a 10 bushel increase, that plant needs 50 more pounds of nitrogen per acre. So it's a very, very high demand for nitrogen. So Phenom is an excellent opportunity to increase the nitrogen supply to soybeans and corn and all crops. So this is an aerial photo of one of our research farms a few years back. I'm sure most of you have seen this picture before because we love this picture. It tells a great story. What happened was when they were applying anhydrous the fall before, half the toolbar was not putting out anhydrous. It was, it was a malfunction. These things happen. It's the real world. Even though it's a research farm, these things happen. But as the corn grew, you could see the yellow stripes all the way across the field of nitrogen deficiency. Half the toolbar was, putting out anhydrous, other half was not. It happened to be the field where they had a phenom test strip. They applied it in furrow, and the yellow deficient corn disappeared. That phenom was able to overcome that deficiency and save those acres where it was applied. Worked out to be a 17.5 bushel increase. And you can see the ear length, the ear girth, the kernels, much higher yield, untreated versus treated. Another really popular placement for phenom is corn acres that get top dress nitrogen or side dress nitrogen. It's an excellent potential replacement or reduction of the top dress and side dress because, and it's more economical too, because what we're looking at here is you can put that phenom on the seed, or you can put that phenom through the planter in furrow, so the phenom would catch a free ride in that situation. Every acre's getting a foliar pass, a herbicide pass. you can put Phenom in that herbicide and catch a free ride. So right there, you're gaining that application and you're reducing a pass. And in a lot of situations, you can have that Phenom, when you put it out early, you can have that Phenom produce as much nitrogen as your side dress, or possibly even higher. Depends on the conditions that year. And the nitrogen you get from Phenom doesn't leach, doesn't volatilize. There's no denitrification. This is a stable form of nitrogen because we're fixing that nitrogen from inside the plant as it's breathing. If you apply nitrogen to corn or beans or wheat or cotton or whatever plant, we don't care. As long as that plant is breathing, it's fixing nitrogen. That Phenom is working inside and it gets used. So the plant's using less energy to move that nitrogen and metabolize that nitrogen and fuel itself. So it is an excellent, excellent form of nitrogen. And so basically we look at it as, some people want to know, well, where should I place Phenom? How do I know? It's acres that need more nitrogen. It's acres where you're reducing your nitrogen. But a really good place to start is if you're top dressing or side dressing nitrogen, that's an excellent spot to use Phenom. And this is an example of a field where we've done this. So this field at about V4 was calling for 40 pounds of nitrogen in a tissue test. It was hot, it was dry. They were in a top dress situation where they were. That's what they were used to doing. And instead of making that next pass, they were going to apply herbicide anyways, but it was so hot and dry, they were really worried about the volatilization of top dressing nitrogen. So they added Phenom to the herbicide tank and had wonderful results. Got 2 more kernels around, got a much longer ear, much bigger stalk, girthier stalk. And the bottom leaf in the overlay here is from the treated. It's almost an inch wider leaf when we took the same leaf off the treated versus untreated. So excellent,
We had a
excellent
question,
practice.
Steve.
Yes, yes.
In the chat box, there's a question. Do you see it or do you want me to read it?
I can see it. I got it up. Jared, good question. And this is the number one question we always get. So the question is, how many pounds of Phenom, how many pounds of nitrogen can Phenom replace? Good question. It's going to depend on when you apply it. It's going to depend on how many days that plant is breathing with Phenom in it. So you're going to fix more nitrogen in a situation where you apply it to the seed versus you apply it foliar at tassel. You have a massive gap in difference in days of Phenom being able to work, because there's days of it, in different numbers of days in it, of it being in the plant, breathing and fixing nitrogen. So I've seen anywhere from 10 pounds to 80 pounds. I mean, it's a massive variable. That is why we stress, get it to the plant early. The earlier you can apply that Phenom, the more nitrogen you're going to fix. Another question, silage information. We do not have silage information, but when you look at these 2 pictures, there's more silage here with Phenom. But if you have excess nitrogen, if you're pouring the nitrogen to it, you're spending a lot more money. But if nitrogen is not limiting the growth of your plant, Phenom is not going to add. You need to have the need for nitrogen to see the difference. So it's all about your nitrogen management. We have done some smaller scale testing and looking at, leaves and stalks and all that, but to get a large volume of silage data, we do not have that in tonnage. But very consistent to see bigger and greener stalks, taller plants, bigger leaves. This is a good example here. This is a research farm in Minnesota. This was applied in furrow, and these are 8 rows of corn untreated, 8 rows of corn treated in furrow with Phenom side by side. These, row 1 and row 8 are touching. They're side by side. And as you can see, the greener stalks, greener leaves, bigger leaves. This is a nitrogen deficiency. We're all very used to seeing corn that's firing. It's cannibalizing. When we're filling the ears on corn, that takes a tremendous amount of nitrogen. And if you don't have enough in the soil, that plant begins to cannibalize itself. It's pulling the nitrogen out of the root balls, the lower stalks, the lower leaves, to pull that nitrogen up to fill an ear. This is a nitrogen deficiency. This is phenom. So we do not see an increase in moisture in the grain at harvest, but at that time of year, one of our number one phone calls we get from customers is, my corn, it doesn't look like it's drying down. It's holding leaves. It's looking green a lot longer than where I didn't apply phenom. It doesn't affect the grain. It's going to make more grain, but it does affect the plant. It'll keep it greener a little longer. And that stands better. It's a much healthier plant. So if you don't get to harvest and you get we don't know what conditions come in October, and we're always afraid that our corn's going to tip or go down. This will stand much better in those situations than this. So some of our nitrogen reduction studies, we've just been using, when we reduce nitrogen in these tests, we take away 50 pounds. And what we've been seeing, so this, I'm going to show you 2 slides here, 2 years of tests from the same farm. Okay. So 200 pounds of nitrogen, got 213 bushel per acre. This is in South Dakota in 2021. 200 pounds of nitrogen, adding the phenom, we got 230 for a 17 bushel per acre increase. Then we had 150 pounds of nitrogen with phenom, and this was applied in furrow, touching the seed. We got a 217, so almost a 5 bushel increase with 150 pounds of nitrogen with phenom versus 200 pounds of nitrogen without phenom. But in this situation, the best thing economically was to not cut the nitrogen. So you have to make your decision on if you're going to cut nitrogen and how much and when and what form. But if you're cutting nitrogen, you really need to be adding a phenom, because you can't just, corn needs nitrogen. All plants need nitrogen. It's the number one nutrient needed. So if you're in that situation where you're looking at cutting some nitrogen, you really should be using phenom. So as I said, the next year, same farm, 200 pounds of nitrogen, got 204 bushels in 2022. 200 pounds of nitrogen plus phenom, got almost 214 bushel. So almost a 10 bushel bump. Got 17 bushel the year before, got 10 bushel the next year. That's a very excellent performing product. Now they did add test strips right next to it with a few of our competing products. One got a -1. One got a -0.4. I mean, that's let's call that a tie. We get enough variability in a field that the data is what it is, but let's call that a tie with the untreated. Then we took away that 50 pounds of nitrogen to repeat, and they only had 2 products in that, couldn't get the third, but that got a 199 for a -5 bushels versus the 200 pounds in. So take away 50 pounds, use a competing product. you'd have been better off using the 200 pounds in. Take away the 50 pounds, use the Phenom, got 1 bushel per acre more versus the 200 pounds in. So that's 2 years in a row, 1 to 4 bushel, and take away 50 pounds. So we got some questions rolling in. N is the number 1 nutrient affecting yield, and phosphorus is number 2. So plants, the number 1 nutrient needed is nitrogen, and phosphorus is 2. Yes, and different plants have different requirements. Another question. Drought is a constant topic, even with the rain this week, because we are so far behind in drought scenario. How would the Phenom work in the event a plant closes up to conserve water? Exactly. That goes back to the breathing and the stomas. So, it's kind of I like analogies, but it's a pretty basic analogy. But think of a stoma on a plant as like a blowhole in a whale. The hole opens up, and you see that spout go out. That's a whale exhaling. That's what a plant does. It opens up, and plants exhale oxygen and water vapor. Then they inhale through the stoma, the blowhole, air from our atmosphere. In a drought, when that crop is stressed, so like corn where the leaves are curling, turning a little gray, that stoma does not open. Heat of the afternoon, that stoma's closed. It's not breathing. If it's not breathing, it's not fixing nitrogen. Does that make sense? It's only fixing nitrogen when that stoma opens and it inhales. I just inhaled air from the atmosphere. That's 78% nitrogen, but it's N2. So late afternoons, heat of the day, the stoma's closed. It's not breathing. It's not fixing nitrogen at that time. It's also not the optimum time to apply Phenom. You want those stoma open, so early morning hours, milder weather, milder temperatures. When that plant is healthy, that's when you want to apply foliar Phenom, because the stoma is open. It gets into that plant very, very quickly. Great question. Keep them coming. So, as we said earlier, Phenom has 2 bacteria. One fixes nitrogen, one affects how that plant metabolizes phosphorus. You're increasing the phosphorus efficiency. I still think of Phenom as a nitrogen product. But of the competing products and these nitrogen fixing products in the marketplace, Phenom's the only one that also has an effect on phosphorus. So it's smaller, it's a smaller effect, but it is helping. It makes a difference. Increasing your phosphorus efficiency is a good thing. So it is a dual action product. But we do think of Phenom first and foremost as a nitrogen product. I look at products as problem solvers. Identify your problem and then choose a product that helps you address or solve that problem. If your concern is nitrogen, use Phenom. If your concern is phosphorus, Phenom wouldn't be my first choice. Our B4 product is best product in the industry for solubilizing phosphorus. If you need more phosphorus, use B4. If you use more Phenom, or if you need more nitrogen, use Phenom. But you're also getting that added benefit of helping with phosphorus efficiency. So a little bit of operational discussion on Phenom. So all Dakota Bio products come with a born-on date, because we are big believers in quality biologicals, in fresh living biologicals. So we tell you on the sticker on the box when that product went in the bladder, when it went in that package. And then you can read the label and see the shelf life. So you do the math. Phenom has a 10-month shelf life. You look at your born-on date, you figure it out with the calendar. Is my Phenom still good? Yes or no? Low use rates, convenient package sizes, easy tank mixes with liquid starters, seed treatments, inoculants, sprayer tanks, liquid and furrow tanks, very easy. It's one of the longest living nitrogen fixing biologicals in the industry also. We have some competitors that are 2 months. Phenom is 10 months. You don't need to add extra water to your mix for buffers. We've taken care of all that in our compatibility recommendations. So just whatever your spray mix is, add the Phenom, go spray it. So Phenom, as we said, that's the foliar or in furrow applications. That's a 16-ounce rate, so 1 pint per acre. We have 2 different package sizes. So we put it in 2 by 2.5 gallon bladders, not jugs. These are bladders. And that case treats 40 acres. We also package in a 200-gallon tote. So it's a large bladder caged in with 3-inch thick cardboard walls. So it's not your standard herbicide tote. It's different. It's a large bladder, but it has the same hookups and for your hoses. Now, Phenom 1 by 200, there's very few left. So if you are interested in a 200-gallon Phenom, you better order it real soon, because I would say we're going to be sold out of those and very, very soon. When you're applying Phenom, you get a tank mix life in starter fertilizers of 15 days. What's best is not waiting the 15 days. This is a biological. Put it in the tank, in the field, go plant. Don't mix it up and wait, because then you're running the risk of something happening and decreasing the number of live Phenom. More live healthy bacteria is better, because then you're populating that plant quicker and you're fixing more nitrogen faster. So a best practice is mix the Phenom in the tank and then go use it. And same thing if you're applying foliar in the spray tank, in the sprayer. That's about with herbicides, or not herbicides, but with herbicides and nutritionals. If you're applying it with micros, we put a 10-hour tank mix life on that. So mix it in the field, go spray it. Phenom ST, that comes in a bladder also, and 1 bladder treats 120 hundredweight of seed. That's at a rate of 2 ounces per 100 pounds of seed. We have an on-seed life day of 30 days. So just like on the Phenom, there's more live healthy bacteria on day 1 than there is on day 30. But it's going to work very well at day 30, but it works better because you have more bacteria, and it works faster if you treat and plant. But you need that window of opportunity in case you get rained out, and just from an operational standpoint of treating seed. And the Phenom ST also has a 10-month shelf life. Yield data summaries. So over 5 years across 11 states, independently managed research farms, where this is all they do is test products and replicate products. So it's not our data. This is independent research farms. 83% win rate over 5 years, averaging 5.4 bushel per acre on corn with a 4% yield increase. Soybeans, 89% win rate, 2.5 bushel per acre with a 4% yield increase. So to recap and to close up on Phenom, so if you have more questions on Phenom, type them into the chat now. We'll get to it because we're going to move to frenzy here. But it's all about nitrogen, increasing the supply to your crop of nitrogen, increasing the efficiency of how that plant metabolizes and uses phosphorus. It's about increasing your profits. Quick question here. Can Phenom help get applied micronutrients into the plant? Can Phenom be applied with micronutrients? Yes. Can it help micronutrients get into the plant? So I'm not sure what you're asking there exactly,
Yeah,
but
sorry
go
to
ahead.
ambush you on it, but I've just been thinking with foliar applied, like an EDTA micronutrient cannot get into the leaf, and it just popped into my head. Is there any possibility that it could get a ride in through the stoma through a product with a product like Phenom?
I don't think so, because I mean, yeah, EDTA chelation does, has to get to the root. So when you apply those micros to the leaf, they got to be washed off and go down. You need a little rain, get it down to the soil, get it up through the root. And Phenom goes through the stoma. So I don't know. Good question. But if micros were able to be brought in through the stoma, they would have been doing that already, whether Phenom's there or not. So
It's either a good question or a dumb question. Well,
No,
we'll figure
hey,
this out.
yeah, I like all questions, but I would. So I am not a micronutrient professional, but if they were going in through the stoma, they'd do it whether Phenom's there or not. Is my farm boy assumption. Would you disagree, Ron?
No, I was just, it's something to look further into because I know, an applied EDTA micronutrient, which there's a lot of,
Yeah.
cannot get into the leaf. It's got to, like you say, it's got to come through the roots. But I wonder if there's something, if it could ride with it, or I don't know. It's something I thought
Yeah.
I need to look into
It's
further.
it's going to be different. We're not going to affect those micronutrients, and
I've had somebody
that's
tell
yeah,
me like a slow release nitrogen helps get my micronutrients in. So yeah, it's something to look into. Kind of interesting.
yeah, yeah. I'll definitely keep my ears open and learn more about that. Good question. I like it. So if there's not more questions about Phenom, I will move on to Frenzy. But if you think of a question, put it in the chat and we'll address it. Absolutely. So Frenzy. Frenzy is a patent pending product, unique and only from Dakota Bio. We are very, very excited about Frenzy. I love Frenzy. And in all honesty, it is probably our highest performing product and got the highest win rates. This is really something that is really the future of Dakota Bio. It's a fantastic product. So it is a unique metabolite that's only produced by bacteria, but it's needed by all living organisms. And what we did was, so we grow the bacteria and we remove this frenzy from the bacteria. We super concentrate it and put it in the jug so you don't have the bacteria. It's not a living product. You're just getting the benefit of the frenzy without all the hassles and worries and shelf lives and tank mix worries and all that stuff that comes with living biologicals. You don't have that with Frenzy. It's a 2-year product. You put it in the spray tank, you spray it. And it's needed by all living organisms, and it's produced only by specific types of bacteria. What it is and what it does is, so it's an ROS scavenger. ROS is reactive oxidative stress. This protects your plant at the mitochondrial level from stress. It delays the harmful effects of stress and increases the recovery from stress. So very common, there's lots of stress products out there. We talk about Phenom. Everybody gets all excited over nitrogen. I get it. It's huge. It is what it is. It's just nitrogen. People don't get as excited over stress, But there's a reason we're not all growing 600 bushel corn here. Because of stress. Because of how ROS affects mitochondria. Frenzy is a fantastic product at helping the plant combat that. Most stress products are made from isoflavonoids. It's a different type of metabolite. And what research has shown is Frenzy is 100 times more powerful at preventing ROS and helping that plant manage stress than isoflavonoids. So we are very excited about Frenzy. And I don't care what crop you're growing, you should really be giving Frenzy a try. So kind of touched on this, but what is ROS? Reactive oxygen species. So plants produce ROS when they encounter stress. So whether it's toxicity, from the heavy metals, whether it's biotic stress from pests and diseases, whether it's drought, heat, whatever it is, when that plant becomes stressed, ROS is produced and it first affects the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the power plant, the factory in every plant cell. It consumes the nutrition and converts and fuels every process of life inside a plant. So if you have less mitochondria, if you have less efficient mitochondria, if you have smaller mitochondria, you are reducing the growth potential of that plant. And that is where Frenzy works. So how it works. This is a picture here. Let me see if I can click on a laser pointer. This here, this little cartoon drawing is representing a mitochondria. Think of them as big and powerful. They consume the nutrition, create the energy to fuel plant life. Everything starts at the mitochondria. And what we have actually recently shown in PhD studies is we are increasing the number of mitochondria in plants. So first and foremost, if you have more mitochondria, your plant is better at consuming that nutrition and fueling growth. We're also creating more efficient mitochondria. So you're getting more efficiency out of the nutrition that plant takes up and is fed. So you're getting more growth out of the same amount of nutrition. When a mitochondria encounters stress and ROS, it has the ability to it gets damaged. So its output, its energy creation goes down. But it has the ability to push the damaged parts of the cell off to the side and discard it. It throws it away, like throwing away the garbage. That is called fission. So we are delaying that damage. We are keeping that mitochondria at its optimum performance longer through stress and delaying that fission. But what mitochondria can do is, after damage occurs, you have these small ones in there, and mitochondria, when good growing conditions return, so let's say you're in a drought and you get a rain and your corn starts coming out of that stress, those mitochondria, the little ones, can come back together because they want to form bigger ones. They want to consume nutrition. They want to fuel that plant. They're designed to grow and fuel that plant. When the smaller mitochondria come together, that's called fusion. So we're increasing the ability of mitochondria to fuse back together to create these big ones. So not only are we delaying the harmful effects of stress, we're increasing the rate of recovery. So one of the top yield response situations we see out in the field in corn is when corn has Frenzy applied to it, and then you get a week of heat and drought stress, and that corn turns a little bit gray, gets a little rolled, and you don't even want to drive by the field because you just don't want to see it. It's not what we want for our corn. Though that situation is the #1 yield response for Frenzy, because we delayed that rolling of the corn, we delayed that heat and drought stress, and opening that window for that harmful weather pattern to pass, and we're increasing the recovery from those conditions if it is bad enough to battle through the frenzy and still occur. So this is what I just described is the heat and drought stress. Now, of course, you can run out of frenzy in a plant. It does not, it's not going to cause you to grow corn with 0 rain. There is a limit. We're really trying to figure out how big of a window are we creating, but it makes a very significant difference. We're delaying that cell damage. We're delaying the harmful effects of stress and increasing the recovery of that crop after the stress passes. So we do a lot of work in greenhouses, in the flower industry, and in the greenhouse and flower production. Wonderful product. So what we did here was put Frenzy in the water, watered the plant, gave this flower just the water, and put it in the greenhouse where we shut off all water. We got heat and drought stress. After 4 days, the untreated plant is wilting. Leaves are curling, leaves are rolling, you're losing petals, which in a greenhouse, this is not a sellable plant. The Frenzy plant was still a sellable plant, withstood that drought and stress. So maybe at home, you got flowers in a pot and you go away for vacation. Come back and the flowers look horrible because they're drought stressed. Frenzy's excellent at really showing its ability to delay the harmful effects of stress and increase the recovery. So how we finished off this testing was we ran it out until we ran the heat and drought stress until the Frenzy plant started to wilt. And it was about 10 days. Gave both plants water. The Frenzy plant came back and was rated by the greenhouse as a sellable plant in the store. The flowers without Frenzy, they had to throw them away. So it's really a good visual of delaying the harmful effects of stress and showing the improved ability to recover. And this is what we want in our corn or our beans or our wheat or our cotton, all crops. So we'll shift back to corn here. We do apply Frenzy in furrow and foliar. Most of it gets applied foliar, but you can go either way. And you really need Frenzy in the plant before those harmful effects of stress. When you apply Frenzy after stress, after damage, the recovery and the ability of Frenzy isn't as good to bring that back. Frenzy needs to be in the plant to have the greatest effect. So you'll want to apply Frenzy before the harmful effects of stress. You want to apply it early. So in furrow, in the planter, or in that first post-emerge herbicide pass. So most of our research on all these research farms is with that first herbicide pass. So about V3 to V5 is when we, accumulate most of our data and see the best effects and best performance. Because at about V5, that corn plant is determining ear length. The healthier and happier and less stress that plant has before V5, the longer your ear. From V5 to V12, you're determining ear girth. So the less stress, the better the conditions, the healthier that plant is, the bigger the girth you're going to have on the ear. If you have a longer ear and you have a girthier ear, you got more kernels. That's yield. Now, Frenzy, we're doing a lot of research on pollination. So right now, we're not really we're not sure if we're affecting pollination or not. We do have a lot of studies coming in where we're increasing the volume of pollen that's created, but we don't know if that's a direct effect or a secondary benefit from just a healthier plant. We're not sure. So there's a lot of research going on with that. But if you have more points of kernels and more silks, you got more kernels you're going to create in pollination. So it's all about making a bigger, longer, girthier ear, more kernels. Soybeans, same thing. Apply it early. So whether it's in furrow or that first herbicide pass, we don't care. Apply it early, because stress during the R1, R2, R3, the R phase, the reproductive phases of soybeans, has drastic effects. So we're seeing excellent response with that first herbicide pass. But what we've started really looking at on soybeans is adding Frenzy to a fungicide application. So if you're going out there about R1 in soybeans, we're seeing tremendous response, because soybeans in August, we all know in August, if you catch the right rain, your yields on soybeans will swing drastically, because if you don't get the right rain in August, you're getting pod abortion. So when you have Frenzy on your soybeans, you're extending that window, you're delaying the harmful effects of stress. So what happens is you're delaying that pod abortion. You're giving that bean a greater opportunity to catch a rain in that crucial window. So think about extending that crucial window to catch a rain in August for soybeans. So you can get some very, very large swings in yields on soybeans with Frenzy. So quick recap on Frenzy. So we're delaying the harmful effects of stress. We're increasing the nutrient efficiency in that plant by how we're affecting the mitochondria. We're delaying the harmful effects of stress and increasing stress recovery in plants. We got many tests that go even deeper in that. The root exudate production has a significant increase in plants. So the reason I mentioned that, one of our most popular products, B4, feeds off root exudates. So a very excellent combination. If you're a B4 user and you love B4 from Dakota Bio, you should be adding Frenzy to that acre. That, not only do you get the benefits of Frenzy, you're improving the B4. You're improving carbon sequestration. Seen many tests on that also. The operational benefits of Frenzy can be used on all crops. It's easy. It's not a living biological. You can tank mix it with herbicides, fungicides, liquid starter fertilizers, micros, you name it. 2-year shelf life. Can be applied in furrow or foliar. Can be applied at any growth stage. Now, I preach, just like you heard many times, get it early. That's best, but you can still apply it as late as you want. As long as that plant's alive, you can get a benefit from Frenzy. 1 pint per acre, 16 ounces per acre is the foliar rate and the in-furrow rate. 2 by 2.5 gallon jugs, that case treats 40 acres. 275 gallon shuttle treats 2,200 acres. 4 years of trials and testing on these independent research farms across 11 states, a 91% positive yield response. That's what I'm saying here. Frenzy is an outstanding product. Whether you have the perfect growing year or a horrible growing season, Frenzy can bring benefit to your crop in all crops. So a 91% positive yield response, averaging 7.5 bushel per acre on corn over 4 years. and a 3.7% yield increase. So you look through this piano chart, you start getting out here, there is a tremendous amount of the high end. It just kind of depends on your conditions and what your plant encounters in the growing season, but Frenzy is an excellent, excellent product. Soybeans, 4 years in these independent research farms, 96% positive yield response. That is extremely, extremely high. 96% of the time we're increasing yields on soybeans. And that's that delaying or extending that window and delaying pod abortion. That is preserving a tremendous amount of yield. Averaging 2.4 bushel, 4% yield increase. And Dakota Bio makes many great products. We just talked Phenom here and Frenzy today, but we have a biological corn residue, crop residue product. DB32 breaks down residue, converts residue to nutrients in a usable form to feed your next crop. DB29 is a soil biology accelerator. B4 is a phosphorus solubilizer. B4 organic is OMRI certified. Soy 30, soy 7 are soybean inoculants. Chickpea pea inoculants. Stride extender for the soybean inoculants. So a lot of great products. Just want to say, if you've been using our products, thank you. We greatly appreciate that. And if you're not using our products, really give one of them a try. You know, and like I said earlier, think about, what do you feel is holding back your yields? Is it nitrogen? Use Phenom. Is it stress? Use Frenzy. Is it phosphorus? Use B4. Is it corn on corn residue? DB32. So any questions? Is there anything I can go back to? Oh, there is a question. What is the future of Frenzy as a seed treatment option or a dust option? Great question. I'll choose my words carefully here. We've been testing a Frenzy ST for quite a while, and looks very, very good for having a Frenzy seed treatment additive product. Yes, looks very good. I'm very excited for it. So yeah, as a dust option, don't know. We have lots of conversations about that. We're looking at it. We'll have to wait and see. Any other questions? What do you think, Bob? Everybody's pretty quiet at the end. Usually there's a little bit of chatter and questions.
I got a
Brian,
question.
have a question.
I do have a question from the cheap seats.
Okay, let's hear it, Brian.
So we know that there is some rather large players in the nitrogen fixation piece of this market, that are out there playing right now. Some people are looking to pivot away from those things and move into a different source of this. Do you see that Phenom would fit into that and be a more universal application method that you could see? And you've touched on a little bit at the start of your presentation, but I think you need to go back and touch on that a little bit more about exactly the benefits of this compared to just a straight nitrogen fixation product. The nutrient use efficiency, the spectrum that you've shown with the Phenom product, I think is something that maybe is not emphasized enough in the literature that we have with this, because we've all focused on nitrogen side, and as we've seen, our cost per unit of nitrogen has gone down this year, and so that's all well and good. But if you have a product that I'm going to be doing the operation anyway, what is it that Phenom does versus Exotic's Invita or Pivot's product as well?
Yes. Okay. So first off, we all know what PB stands for, but that is a private equity funded company out of San Francisco. And every time I say their name or use their logo, I get letters from their lawyer. So I say PB. You guys can fill it in. I would say the fastest growing segment of our Phenom customers is PB dealers, because that is a bacteria that fixes nitrogen. Yes, it absolutely does. But it lives and grows on the root. It is not an endophyte. It does not live inside the plant. So it can only be applied as a seed applied product or in furrow. So right off the bat, Phenom or Invita, I can say their name because they don't sue me just for saying their name. They're good people. These are both endophytes. They're completely different bacteria, but they're both endophytes. They both live in the plant. That's where, just from ease of use, I call it operational benefits, you can apply it foliar. You don't have to have in furrow on your planter to use Phenom, because you can apply it foliar. So right there, PB is at a significant disadvantage from an application and a usability standpoint. The other thing is, when you have a nitrogen fixing bacteria that grows on the root and fixes atmospheric nitrogen in the presence of the root, waterlogged soils kill it. So it goes back to kind of like inoculants. That lives on the root of a soybean or a pea or a chickpea, whatever legume. You get waterlogged soils, that stuff's dead because it needs air to breathe. You get a heavy crust and you cap off the airflow to your roots. Doesn't work. PB still converts atmospheric nitrogen to usable form in the presence of the root to be taken up by the root. So if you reduce your airflow, you're reducing your N2 at that bacteria and reducing your nitrogen fixation. Now, when you fix nitrogen or even apply nitrogen that's taken up by a root takes a lot more energy from that plant to take it up and translocate it up the plant and move it. So it takes a lot more sugars and carbohydrates and energy to do that. So Phenom in the leaf is bypassing that. It's kind of like getting on the toll road and skipping all the little towns and stop signs, and you're just straight shot. You're right there. Much less energy requirement out of the plant with a Phenom versus a PB. And that's with an inoculant too. An inoculant takes energy out of that plant, takes energy to make the nodule, takes energy to feed that bacteria in the nodule to keep it alive, to convert atmospheric nitrogen in a usable form, feed the plant. Phenom's doing it inside. So it's a wonderful way. So I don't know if I hit your question exactly, Brian. Is that what you were getting at?
No,
that's
exactly right. We're looking at, in the reason that we promote and sell, the products that we promote and sell, is because we're seeing the ability to include and implement these technologies into the plant and it not have a negative response to the plant. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So the plant doesn't have more stress. Rolling over to the frenzy side of this, formerly DB25, for those that have been around long enough, but the frenzy side of the product mix, we're trying to do stress mitigation, but we're also trying to do the ability to not induce or bring into or introduce stress into an environment that the plant's already struggling to grow in, right? And we know that if you are doing a PB application, to be politically correct, with this, and you add Phenom to it as a foliar application, immediately post emerge, so that you're putting it on there, that you will see a benefit from it. That it will be you do see a stacking effect. Unfortunately for the PB application people, is that stacking effect may not be more than what you saw with just a Phenom application, depending on what the limiting factor is in the field. Okay, and so I think that's the other piece of it. Well, that's the other piece of it too that you have to be looking at, that you touched on, that I think gets skipped over in some of these conversations, is that we at Newfields Ag have the ability to prescribe per farm, per field, what's needed, instead of just saying put this on everything. And you touched about the fact that, hey, if nitrogen is not your limiting factor, all right, if phosphorus is, you have a B4 product that can help with that, right? And so the other piece of it that we want everybody to know is that there is a diversity, and a reason we have the diversity of the product mix we do, because not every farm situation is the same, not every soil type is the same, not every planting history is the same. I've got guys around here that have had 20 to 25 years of continuous corn, because they've got to have the feedstock, right? They've got to have those things. And so that's a completely different environment to go into a 50-50 corn bean rotation. And so that part of it that you've talked about, both the products you presented today, the reason that we wanted to end our Fire Up Weekly Wednesday webinars with this topic is because it talked about nutrient use efficiency and stress mitigation. Things that we have preached and will continue to, and the products fit into that. So I appreciate that piece, and that's what I'm looking at. And now you can tell me.
No, you're right. And there's one question on the chat here. Will adding Phenom to PB be a benefit? Okay, I'm biased. I mean, I got a Dakota Bio shirt on. I got a Dakota Bio hat on. I'm one of the owners. I'm one of the founders of Dakota Bio. I'm biased, but I've done a lot of side-by-sides here, and we have a lot of customers doing side-by-sides. And I'll tell you right now, Phenom works a heck of a lot better. So you add Phenom to PB, yeah, it's going to help, because that has a very low win rate, and it's a very fragile organism, very short shelf life. You add PB to Phenom, is it going to help? No. It's like, okay, how many nitrogen sources do you want? But if PB works, it works. Good for you. But I mean, Phenom's my choice. That's why we selected these organisms and developed this product, because it's better. And not just fixing more nitrogen, it's better from ease of use. I mean, I'm a farm boy at heart. I grew up on a little farm in northeastern North Dakota. And so we're busy. We cannot have all these products where everything has to be just perfect and just so. It's got to work through your sprayer. It's got to be easy use. You look at all the rules that come out with PB and don't do this. If you do this, you lose this program. You do this, you lose this program. They are just full of rules because it's fragile. That's how they improve and educate their customers, but improve the performance of their product. And I agree with it. They're right. But in the real world, we can't follow all those rules. Who's going to quit using zinc in their starter on corn to use a Pivot Bio? I'm not. You need the zinc and the nitrogen. I mean, yeah.
I think another way to attack that is, at Newfields Ag, we always talk about return on investment. And to Jim's question, is the addition of Phenom to PB a benefit? Well, it probably will be, but will it return anything on the investment by doing both? Maybe, maybe not. But by doing Phenom alone is going to give you probably better return on your investment than doing both.
Yeah, I would not use two products that do the same thing. If you want to see the difference between Phenom and PB, use them both separately. So you got one variable to see the difference, see which one works better for you. But I wouldn't I wouldn't stack them, you know, and Brian touched earlier on nitrogen and all that. I mean, everybody I asked the price of nitrogen gives me a different answer. I mean, the last time I ran the math from the last guy I talked to, it's like 14, 15 pounds a N kind of balances out your cost of your phenom. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
and to that point, if you're going to stack things that do something different.
Yeah.
You know,
Do a
don't
phenom and a
stack things that
frenzy.
do the same thing.
Correct. Do
You
a
know,
phenom and
so
a
to Jared's
frenzy.
point, if you're going to do anything, you take and you stack a stress mitigator like Frenzy on top of it, or you use Phenom and Frenzy. You don't use Phenom and Invita, for instance. So if you're going to stack something, stack things that do something different. Attack whatever concern or issue or problem you have on your farm. Find the product that addresses that, and then stack it accordingly.
Yeah, if you're well, like the picture here, if you're in an area where you got split applied in and you're side dressing in, you should be using Phenom in furrow or that first herbicide pass with a goal of go out and do a tissue sample and see, okay, is my corn deficient in nitrogen? Do I cut back that amount of N I'm going to put in that side dress, or am I going to eliminate that pass? I mean, my gosh, then you come out way ahead in profitability. Or if you're in soils where you're taking soil samples and you got, you know, phosphorus, unavailable phosphorus, so depending on your pH, use B4. You're going to get it. You're going to get, you know, very good response out of that B4. And then stack those things. So think of Phenom as nitrogen, B4 as phosphorus, Frenzy as helping that plant increase the efficiency of all nutrients and reducing the damage from stress. Because we're going to get stress. You're not all growing 600 bushel corn. That comes, your yields get reduced every day by stress. And your corn is stressed and you're encountering damage to your mitochondria and the performance of their mitochondria long before you see a visible sign in that plant. I mean, that damage doesn't start, and yield loss does not start when the plant's rolled up and gray. It has damage and yield reduction happens long before that.
Well, and
All right.
that gets back to your endophytic piece of that, Steve, that I think gets lost too, is the fact that you have that if you're there all season long, you can help that plant as it exudates and calls for those nutrient mixes, right? And so the plant's healthier as it gets started. And that stay green piece of it, that, you know, that I'd much rather have my plant dry down than die down. And unfortunately, over the last few years, we've had a lot of die down happening. And so your stalk and your standability and all that kind of stuff is drastically affected by the die down piece of it. So, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Bob's kicking me off. Bob's giving me the hook, so I gotta be quiet.
That's this. This is not supposed to happen, but we all accept it as normal. No, that's adding a lot of risk in harvest and yield loss. And I'd like to say, I know Bob wants to get going for whatever reason. I'll sit here all day and visit, but I want to say, you know, yeah, we got a foot of snow this week where I'm at. It looks like winter, but we know spring's coming. But I just want to let everybody know, yep, Phenom's still available. Frenzy's still available. Call your Newfields Ag rep. Get it on order. Get it coming. And have a safe spring. You know, I wish you all the best of luck. Be safe and have spring's coming. It's great. Winter's going to be over. Now, everybody listening is probably thinking, who's this wacko got a foot of snow this week? But that's where I'm at. First time I ran the snowblower all winter was this week. So that's a good winter.
All right, are there any other questions? Any questions in the chat box, raised hands? Any other questions anyone has? All right, again, thank you, Steve, for joining us and for your presentation. We encourage everyone to visit our website at newfieldsag.com. This will be our final Wednesday webinar for a while, as like Steve alluded to. Spring is here or getting very close, so we will stop our webinars as everyone starts getting into the fields and getting a lot busier. So, but we encourage you to go on our website because we do library these webinars under our education tab in the dashboard. So if you have questions about almost any of the products that Newfields Ag carries, including the products from Dakota Bio, we probably have a webinar on our website that you can go and watch it anytime you want to. As dealers and distributors, you can utilize those webinars, the educational pieces within those webinars with your customers, with your salespeople, to get them up to speed on the latest information, technology, and yield data. Thank you again for joining us this year for our Wednesday webinars. Please be safe and have a great planting season and a successful 2024. Thanks again.
Thank you.